Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Fort York. Inside one of the buildings here. If you're a subscriber, you probably have already seen the Nova Scotia Barracks when we were out there. The uniforms they would have had. Fort York, of course, is famous for the War of 1812. It was occupied, I think, for an entire 6 days by the Americans, who landed outside on the coastline here. Had several skirmishes with native people and made their way here to Fort York. We did explode a couple things to wound and kill several Americans, but they still were able to overtake the camp. I think they took 1,700 of them, though, to do that. Table settings replicating an 1815 soldiers' barracks. We'll go on to the next building now. In the distance, here they come, the great defenders of our Commonwealth.
The muzzle of the musket, and then get rammed down by the ramrod. The squad is now going to take the open order, so they're going to do the light infantry exercise. Meaning that by spreading themselves out and then by crouching down, they make themselves more difficult targets. And this way that they can run up and harass an enemy. This may be a bit loud. Make up for the fact that they're not very accurate. Only accurate from 150 to 100 to 150 yards. Only effective from 150 to about 200, maybe a little bit past. Those from the front rank and the rear rank, they all have their own way to load so that they're not pushing at each other. They're commanded by the sergeant who wears the sash and the brighter red. Most of the British units at this time were wearing red because it is the cheapest dye. They didn't print them. And they can get away with wearing such bright colors because all of the smoke that you see coming from the muskets from that burning black powder rifling. So even though they didn't have rifle technology at the time, rifling basically was being grooves that are carved in a barrel to grip and twist a type and bullet. Probably would clog up those grooves and make it quite difficult to load. So they went with these fast loading muskets with most of their soldiers, although they did give a few specialty soldiers these rifles to be more accurate. Now, the average British soldier was expected to be able to load and fire about 4 rounds. And that fast rate of firing, of loading and firing, would mean well-disciplined, well-trained soldiers and could overwhelm an enemy with musket fire. It was a difficult rate to keep up though because, again, the more you shoot, the more can go wrong. So as you see, they're not necessarily all firing at the same time. By having at least some soldiers still loaded, they can provide covering fire to the ones who need to load still. They can fire by section, they can fire by company, they can do a battalion volley. There are many different ways to fire the musket, and so that they're acting more like a wave instead of all firing at once and then all reloading and being vulnerable at the same time.
Welcome to the officers' barracks. Presumably better quarters. Some displays of things from the time. Model York boats. Really look like large canoes. Multiple people could paddle. Furs from the time. Guns and axe handles. More furs. Beautiful traditional blankets. Scarf. The War of 1812, when the barracks was briefly occupied by the American force of 1,700 people that invaded from the harbor.
Yeah, but did you see what they found? They found some plates from the fancy people. This is where we would have lived. Is this the middle class?
Built in 1789 to carry furs, the Nancy was used by the Provincial Marine and the Royal Navy as a supply vessel on the Upper Lakes during the War of 1812. In 1814, she was burned on the Nottawasaga River during an American attack. And here we have an extremely large and beautiful reproduction of what the Nancy would have looked like, including the British ensign. Whole lot of mass, obviously to catch the wind. Lifeboats. And the flag, of course, if it could be raised or lowered. Of course, the key to the soldiers' trade would have been, to a large extent, their artillery, including the Simcoe guns, which fired 9-pound rounds at a time. I'm pretty sure you didn't want one of those hitting you. And, in fact, if you didn't want 9 pounds hitting you, you probably didn't want 12 pounds hitting you either, which is what comes out of these, which is the iron 12-pounder. Both of which were used in the late 1700s up until the early 1800s. The Rampart gun of 1793, originally made for the East India Company. They are very powerful guns. They had a good long shot, much farther than a regular gun at the time. The unfortunate drawback was the fact that they weigh over 30 pounds per gun. So you wouldn't want to be hiking for hundreds of miles carrying one of these. Of course, some of the pattern artillery of the time included officers' swords. I guess you had to be an officer to be lucky enough to get to carry a long sword with you, just in case it came to hand-to-hand combat.
They look funny with that strap.
Uniforms typical of the light dragoons of the time. Part of the reason they were able to get away with such colorful uniforms in these times is the fact that the shot fire from the guns let off so much smoke that generally the battlefield was shortly covered in smoke anyhow, and you couldn't see a lot. And good weaponry, though. I wouldn't let my kids play with these, that's for sure. While many soldiers had fixed bayonets on the end of their muskets and rifles to protect themselves from attack, they seldom really connected with these, as bullets were much more effective. But they certainly did look imposing, and if a bunch of people were rushing at you with these on the end of the rifle, you were much more likely to run away than just stand there for hand-to-hand combat. Of course, for ceremony or for marching, similar to our marching bands today, we had great instruments such as drums. And of course, what would life be without bagpipes? Staff quarters for your good old people on the front line that of course needed a place to sleep and a place to eat, as do most of us. Toronto sure has changed since 1931. This was likely the Fort Barracks area. Canada is blessed to have so many Native people. One of those groups are known as the Anishinaabe. And here we have an Anishinaabe warrior from Upper Canada, circa 1813. Here we have a private from the Upper Canada Militia, approximately 1913. Oh, I'm 100 years off. Let's say 1813. Canada had a proper militia, well, Upper Canada, as we were known then, since we didn't become a country until 1867. Before we leave here today, we'll finish with a couple of shots of the big cannons that shot 8 and 12-pound projectiles from them, and to let you know that we are ready to defend our country should the need ever arise.